Hi, I'm Buffy DeGavera. I'm here with Marsha King at her house on East Boundary Road. It is August 24th, 2010, and it's about 10:30 in the morning. Hi, Marsha. I'm wondering if I could get your full name.
Marsha King Rempel,
And when were you born?
April 7th, 49.
And were you born in Kelowna, Westbank?
I was born in Kelowna General Hospital.
And could I get the names of your parents?
Charlotte Lindley from Westbank and Charlie Pierre of Penticton.
And do you have any siblings?
Margaret Pierre.
And do you have any children?
4 children.
And could I get their names?
Gordon, Dolores, Mickey, and Lena.
So are you a member of Westbank First Nation?
I am?
And were you born a member of Westbank First Nation
Yes.
or from somewhere else?
No, I was born Westbank First Nation.
And have you always been a member here? Or?
Up until I got married. And I lost my status because I married a white guy. And that was hard. That was a hard time for me because a lot of my family shunned me, and then I wasn't really welcome in the white world. So that was a difficult time for me. And even when I came home, I was still a non-status. Up until when was it, 1986 or something like that?
Yeah.
Then I got to be Indian again. So, yeah.
Are your children all members of Westbank First Nation?
Yes, they are.
And did you grow up in Westbank?
I did.
And where were you raised?
I was raised down by the old ferry docks off the West Side Road.
Did you have a house down there?
We did. Yeah.
And where was that located? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it's right now. It's where Pat Fosbury lives. We had a house there, a little old house, and then we upgraded to a bigger house. Still no running water or electricity till I was 14.
So you live right on near the beach there. And did you who lived with you?
My mom and whatever kids she rounded up and wanted to live with us.
And did you go to school in Westbank, or were you sent away? Or
No, I wasn't sent away. I went to school started out at Westbank Elementary, and then they built the school at Lakeview Heights, so I was transferred over there. Then I went to George Pringle High till grade 8.
and then did you go working, or
No, I got myself pregnant and started having babies, got married, and moved away.
raised a family? And where did you move to?
Everywhere. We moved Blue River, Prince George, Vancouver.
So you've been all over BC, kind of.
Always come home though, always came home.
And I see that you do a lot of traditional practices. Who did you learn those from?
Basically self-taught. Got interested in it my own self and decided to follow up on my arts and crafts.
And do you speak any Okanagan?
I understand more than I can speak. I know I mispronounce a lot of words, but I can understand basically any conversation.
And who do you remember talking Okanagan when you were younger?
My mom spoke it often. She would speak for Nancy Swite, who is an elder. We called her Tuma. That's Gary Swite's grandmother. She lived close by us, and they would go shopping, and Mom would interpret for her. And she would let her write for Chief Robert Louis' grandmother when Robert and his mom and dad and siblings were in California. Mom used to write, and they always came visiting, and that's all they spoke was our language, the Indian language.
And who was your mom? Who were her family?
The Lindleys, Tom Lindley and Angeline Lindley.
Those are her parents?
Her parents.
Oh, yeah. And who were her brothers and sisters? Did she have any?
She had brothers and sisters. Norman Lindley, Ethel, Agnes, Lena, Ella. Wow.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. I might have left somebody out. I know I probably did.
Could you tell me the approximate year of when your mom might have written letters to?
See, I was born in '49, so that would have probably been in the later '50s.
Oh, yeah.
When she would write the letters.
And who else was living around in that area at the time that you might remember down in?
My grandpa and Pete Manuel and Bill Derrickson. And of course Gary and his family, Gary Swite and his family lived right where they're at now, in that area. And Aunt Millie and Uncle Henry lived close by. Who else? My grandma. That was about it. Well, of course the Cobles. Well, not the Cobles. What's Catherine's? Louis. The Louis, yeah.
And did you lived right by the ferry wharf, right? And was it going at that time?
It was, yeah.
So how many times a day did the ferry go through that you remember?
That I remember, I think it was probably 4 times a day.
Would people typically go on horses or vehicles by then? By what
Yeah,
you remember?
there were a few vehicles, and people went by horseback. They would park their wagons on the west side and take the ferry into Kelowna, and some went horseback. And we even had a sheep herder who'd bring a whole swack of sheep, and he'd have I don't know, a good 900 feet of beach where he'd pen the sheep up, and one ferry was especially for the sheep to go across. Nobody else could fit on.
Jeez, and what would he do with them? He'd take them into...
He'd take them into Kelowna and then herd them off to his ranch.
Oh, okay.
Because they ranged on the west side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what did people usually go into Kelowna for? That you remember
Groceries, shopping.
Because there wasn't much over on the west side.
There wasn't anything on the west side. No.
And do you remember who was chief at that time, or?
We belonged to the Vernon band then. And later in time, my Uncle Norman became the first chief. Aunt Millie and Mary Ann Eli were the councillors.
And you remember that first election, or?
No, I don't.
You don't know?
No.
Were you already gone by then?
I was probably gone, and I just heard that
Yeah.
Uncle Norman was chief, and we were separated.
Yeah. And do you remember it being a big deal? Do you remember anything about that? Any kind of talk? Or?
It seemed like people were pretty happy with it. Yeah. Nobody was complaining. I think the only complaint was that we ended up with such a small land base. We have next to nothing for. I mean, you look at Vernon and Penticton, how huge their land base is, and we ended up with a little.
Small area. I know your family, your sons, and I don't know about your daughters much, but your sons, they do a lot of hunting and fishing and that kind of thing. Who did they learn that from? And do you and your husband do that as well?
We used to, up until I got sick, yeah. We used to do a lot of hunting and fishing. And my sons learned from their Uncle Doc, Harold McDougall. They learned the hunting and fishing from spending a lot of time in the bush with him.
So they would go up up with him and
Camping.
his family when they were
Yeah,
young.
they go camping.
And typically, what kind of animals do they hunt?
Moose and deer.
And then the fish, whatever's coming through.
Yeah, creek fishing for brook trout or lake, one of the lakes up in the bush. Yeah.
By the lake, could you tell us a little bit about the quality of the water, what kind of fish, if you fished in there?
Oh, the water was so clean. So clean. It's all murky and got that sledge stuff on the bottom now. And you walk out, you walk so far and then you have to swim to a clear spot. But it was all clean. You could see every pebble. And we used to take a white rock when we were kids and we used to throw that. And we could see it and we would dive for it. And there was a lot of tules then. And we used to tie them together and go through. And the sand was beautiful and clean. And now it's just, it's just a shame to see the way it's gone. It's so polluted now.
And did you fish out of there?
Not so much out of there. We like the fishing, creek fishing was our favorite because we just loved the brook trout. Small little trout that you could fry up. Yeah.
And what kind of other things did you have a garden? Did you eat wild meat? Like what?
Yeah, we had a garden. We had a big garden. And my brother Johnny used to go hunting. And, well, of course, the three guys, Johnny, Louie, and Leonard, they'd go hunting for deer. Mostly deer. We didn't eat that much moose then. But we used to watch them come down Blue Grouse Mountain is where they would go hunting. And when it was fall time and cold, we'd see a fire start up the top. And we'd say, oh, there they are. They're near the top. And then hours later, there would be another fire started halfway down. They're getting closer. And then, so we'd watch for their fires when they were coming home. We'd know about what time they'd get home.
Oh, yeah. And what were their last names? Because I know they weren't.
Yeah, Johnny Lindley.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I considered him my brother. My mom raised him. And Louis Tomat and Leonard Manuel. Yeah, they were the three musketeers.
And they lived with you off and on? Or?
Yeah.
And how old were they when they moved with you guys?
They were teenagers, yeah. And whenever Mom needed help, if they were away, they would come back. Like we had cattle and horses, and we had haying to do. And whenever Mom needed them, they always came back and helped if they were working away.
Oh, yeah. So kind of their families are partially related to you because of...
Yeah. Yeah, maybe not related through blood, but related to, through
growing up together.
Yeah.
And did you have anybody else who lived with you?
Betty Lindley, that's Norman Lindley's eldest daughter. She lived with us for a time. And I think that was about it. Yeah, but Mom always had others besides us. We never had her to ourselves.
So, like everybody those days, eh? And during the haying, did a lot of people come and help, or was it kind of for your family?
Yeah. Charlie Swite, who lived with Nancy Swite, just a ways from us, used to bring his team of horses, or his horse, and he'd cut the hay, and he would rake it, and then we would go with a wagon and pile it on a wagon and move it to the haystack, where we'd stack it up for the winter.
And did you use that hay yourself, or did you?
We did, yeah. We had cattle and horses, so it was nice to get that help from Charlie. He was always good to come and help Mom.
And how many cattle do you remember having, or horses?
We had probably half a dozen horses and 20 head of cattle. Yeah. It was small, but that was our Christmas money. In the fall time, Mom used to take the calves and sell them, and make money from the cattle. Yeah.
And your horses were for riding. You guys all rode them?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So did you ride horses when you were little? Or?
All the time, all the time. I'd get home from school and I would be gone, you know.
And where did you ride when you were younger?
Wow, I used to tell Mom I'm going to go around, and she knew what around meant for me. It was going up Rose Valley, go up towards Rose Valley and keep going through to Johnson's Crossing. That's on Bear, Maine, and then come down and come along West Side Road to home.
So that must have taken you a
The
few hours.
day. I would be gone for the whole day. Yeah.
And she didn't even worry about you.
Not at all, no.
Come home every time. When you came back, did you raise your family up in that area, or did you raise them somewhere else?
My kids?
Yeah.
Well, we spent a lot of time with my parents, like my mom, and she married Elmer Pop. Wonderful, wonderful man. He was my dad. And as I didn't know my biological dad, I found out when I was probably 13 years old that he had died, and I had never laid eyes on him in my life, so I didn't know how to act. Was I supposed to cry? What was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
But no, I never did. But Mom remarried to a wonderful man who helped raise my kids, and that's where they get their integrity and their work hard ethics is from my mom and dad.
And they were still down. Did they live down by the lake?
No,
or
my
did she-
dad. Of course, my mom lost her status when she married my dad, but thank goodness for Ted Erickson. He told Mom, "You're going to lose all your property because you're marrying Elmer."
Yeah.
And he said, he said, "I'll make a deal with you." He said, "You give me your property, and I'll give you $1, and I'll hang on to it for you for as long as I have to." So she put the property in Ted Erickson's name and married my dad, and they built a house up in Westbank.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a 2-acre orchard up there, cherry orchard. And my dad was a logging truck driver,
Oh, yeah.
37 years. And wonderful man. That's where I was saying my kids, mostly we spend a lot of time with them.
So that was their grandpa.
Yeah.
And did she get that property back in the end?
She did get it back, and when I ended up getting married when I was 16, I had a son, and no, I wasn't married yet, but I had Gordy, and I put him in Gordy Pierre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and then my mom divided the 30 acres between Gordy and my sister Margie. That's how it came back to our family. So then after I got to be Indian again, I I ended up with very little down there, but that's okay.
And your children live over there
They
now?
do, and I'm really proud that they're. And I did buy a little piece off of my sister from here and there, and we did manage to hold on to some of our home property.
Well, that's good. In the house that you grew up with your mom, did you guys have power, running water?
No, we didn't have any of that. Not until later.
So how did you get your water?
We lived by a creek, close to a creek. That's where we got our water from.
You hold it up every day.
Yeah, and coal oil lamps. We were too scared of gas lamps. We tried once and it flared up, and we threw it outside and never did it again. Mom was afraid.
So do you remember getting power? Did you guys ever end up getting power?
We did when we got a house built, and we got power and No, we didn't have running water, just power. So it was heat the water on the wood stove, and.
So did you heat your house with the wood stove that you cooked on, or did you have separate?
We had two. We had one heater and one cook stove. So.
And did your mom make a lot all the meals and
She did,
everything?
yeah, all the meals. She did all the canning. When the guys went hunting, she'd can deer meat, can fish, can vegetables from our garden, fruit from surrounding areas.
And how did you keep your food cool?
Down by the creek, my brother Johnny made a box, where, well, a couple of boxes where we would, and with a screen door on it, and we'd put our meat and eggs in there. So we couldn't keep anything for any length of time at all.
So the cool air off the water would cool that.
Yeah.
And what kind of, did they take animals across on the ferry? I think you mentioned some
Yeah.
sheep going across. Was there other
Sheep-
animals?
Sheep, cattle, as a matter of fact. Down by my grandpa's house, there was a pretty good sized holding corral. And they'd bring the cattle from the range. My mom was a range boss, and she used to do a lot of riding up on Ball Range in that area, and bring cattle down in about September time of year. She'd start bringing them down, and they'd be held in the holding corral, and then the guys, ranchers from Kelowna, would come across and take their cattle home in their trucks.
So everybody would have their cattle up there together, or was there a company?
Yeah, there was, I think Mom was watching out for about 3 different outfits up there. No, that was later, the truck thing. The cattle were put on the ferry as well back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when the bridge was put in, do you remember that time?
I do.
And do you remember what year that was?
That was in 58. My uncle Enoch Wilson, who was married to my Aunt Ella, they had they lived on what we call the flat, and that would be just above the cemetery, where our cemetery is above the bridge.
Yeah.
They lived in a house up there, and my uncle Enoch got work on the bridge. But sadly to say, he got polio, and he died. And a week later, his son, my cousin Raymond, he died of polio also. So my aunt lost 2 in a matter of a week. Yeah.
And after the bridge came, did they continue using the ferry for things, or was it shut down?
For a short while they did, but not very long at all. And then it was the walk to town for groceries or whatever, walk across the bridge.
And did you guys go into Kelowna, a fair amount, or not too often?
Probably about once every 2 weeks.
Just for the staples.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you do crafts. Do you did you just start doing that, or have you been doing it all your life? Or
No, I just started. Got interested in painting. About 10 years ago, I took a lesson up in Westbank. There was a couple of ladies up there offering up a painting class. So I painted flowery stuff. I moved away from that and got into the painting the more native designs. And my son Mick told me, "Mom, why don't you sell your painting?" And I said, "Oh, nobody's going to buy that." No, I said, "I won't." He said, "You'd be surprised." And I was surprised, very happily surprised. Now it's a full-time job, and I really enjoy. I've learned how to bead in the past year, and so between the painting and the beading, I keep myself very busy. The mind never sleeps.
and you sew too, don't you?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
And what things do you paint or sew or bead?
Sewing, I will make bags, and beading, I will bead feathers and keychains, and whatever will stand still long enough, I'll bead it. And painting is mostly wooden bowls with the native designs in them.
And so do you go places and sell them, or do people come here, or do you?
A little bit of
orders?
both. Dottie Clough and I have a reputation now, so anybody who's holding a conference, they they call on us to bring our wares. So we happily go traveling together and selling our wares. And
Do you have a name, or you just go by Marsha King?
just Marsha King, nothing fancy.
No company name yet?
No, I gotta get bigger.
Do you use the internet for your selling yet? Have you
No,
gone into
no. I've thought of it, but I'm not too savvy on a computer. But
haven't gone there yet. Oh, see how many grandkids. So, how many grandkids do you have?
how many grandkids? 2, 4, 6, 7.
7. Do you have any great grandchildren?
I have 1. Thank you to my granddaughter Crystal Lazard. Emily is her name, and she's turning 2 in September.
Right on. So, do you get to visit her?
Not as often as I would like.
Don't get to babysit too much. And does she live in this?
She does.
She lives in Westbank. And I guess now near the end here, looking around our community, is there any? Do you like the economic development? Do you like how it is, or do you wish there's less? Or what are your thoughts in regards to our community and how it's going and where it's progressing to?
Well, we've sure come a long way, and quickly. But I'm really pleased with all the development that's going on around me. The only thing is, my concern is for the future, land base, like I said before, land base for our up and coming young people. Where are they going to build their houses? We have Gallagher's Canyon, but wow, that's going to cost a fortune to upgrade the roads, get sewer, water, and nobody seems to be that interested in that on that side. So I'm hoping in the future that they would go really hard on the land claims and get more property on this side, like maybe up Bear, Maine. Yeah, up that way would be good, because it's nice and close, and there's a lot of crown land up there that's looking pretty good.
And with the community, do you find that we can make improvements? How could we do it? Are we doing really, in your opinion, are we going in the right direction?
The community, I'm sad to say, is not a healthy community, and I feel like I can't go for my walks in the evening. I'm afraid to even walk in my own community, and they got to get a handle on the drugs, which is taking up too much. Too many of our young people are getting involved in that. Well, some of our older people too, but that has been an ongoing battle that I wish that they could get on top of. But other than that, it's a good place to live.
And because we're a small community, obviously we know everybody and their problems and their happiness too.
Yeah.
But,
Oh yeah.
And is there a message for your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren down the road?
Wow.
If you can look, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, that you'd like them to leave them for them.
Oh, just wow, that's a hard one. I could go on this one, because I love my grandchildren. I love my children so much that I just wish that they would get a good education and be successful and be happy and love lots. Never be afraid to show how much you love each other. I hope that carries on, because it's just a family tradition that I would like to see carried on, and I just hope that they will be happy with themselves and whatever life they choose. I hope they will be happy and successful. Love lots.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us and sharing your views and opinions and your thoughts, because this is what we need for the next generation to look at and learn from.
Well, it was an honor, and thank you so much for letting me tell you a little bit, not much, but a little bit, and I hope you'll find it useful.
I'm sure we will.